Were you aware that abuse within relationships tends to unfold in distinct stages rather than abruptly? It doesn't start with immediate intensity, instead, it progresses gradually. It begins with a slow build-up, and just when the victim is ensnared by the allure of love bombing, the romantic facade swiftly deteriorates into toxicity. Familiarizing ourselves with the stages of abuse in relationships can empower us to recognize it and remove ourselves before it escalates. Unfortunately, abuse often cover-ups as love. Perpetrators of abuse can exhibit charm and humor on occasion. One moment, they may declare their deep affection and need for you, but the next, they can crush your self-esteem by subjecting you to humiliation, criticism, and control. Regrettably, at times, those who profess their love and concern for us can be the very individuals who inflict the most harm upon us. This can be incredibly confusing because the abuser may offer justifications like, "I'm doing this because I love you," or "I'm only trying to protect you." However, this does not align with the true essence of love. Genuine love is unconditional, founded on understanding, respect, and kindness. Someone who truly loves you will never deliberately harm you. In contrast, an abusive individual will manipulate and dominate you for their personal gain, regardless of the pain it causes you. Abusers typically follow a predictable pattern as they tighten their grip on their victims. Let's delve into the 4 stages of abuse within relationships. Stage 1: Idealization. This marks the initial honeymoon phase of an abusive relationship. During this stage, the abuser showers the victim with compliments, gifts, grand promises of a blissful future together, and an overwhelming sense of being cherished. In the early stages of interaction, the potential abuser goes to great lengths to make the victim feel extraordinary, earning their trust. At this point, the victim often perceives the abuser as their soulmate. The abuser presents an idealized version of themselves, which gradually fades as the abusive behaviors emerge. The victim may disregard concerning signs due to their enthusiasm for the relationship. Subtle control surfaces as the abuser shows jealousy or disapproval of the victim's friendships and interests, marking one of the most inconspicuous stages of abuse in a relationship. Stage 2: Verbal abuse. Once the abuser believes the victim is sufficiently emotionally invested, the abuse begins. It typically commences with subtle verbal taunts, progressively escalating to criticism, insults, name-calling, and put-downs. Every flaw, mistake, or disappointment triggers an abusive outburst from the perpetrator. Relentlessly, they blame and belittle the victim. The abuser may target the victim's appearance, abilities, or personality to erode their self-esteem gradually. Gaslighting becomes a tool to make the victim doubt their own recollection and perception of events. Over time, the abuse intensifies as the abuser tests boundaries to gauge how much they can get away with. Verbal abuse sets the stage for more severe forms of coercion and control. Stage 3: Isolation. As verbal abuse escalates, the process of isolation begins. The abuser systematically severs the victim's ties to external support networks. They isolate the victim from friends and family who could offer assistance. They may prohibit contact with specific individuals, monitor communication channels, restrict outings, or employ other methods to sever the victim's independent relationships. Awareness of these stages of abuse can aid in the healing process. Isolation diminishes external influences and prevents the victim from accessing alternative perspectives. It also enables the abuser to exert complete control without interference from external sources. Stage 4: Physical abuse. Once the victim is isolated and emotionally broken, physical violence emerges. It typically begins with acts like hitting, slapping, shoving, choking, or beating, and escalates to other forms of assault. Physical abuse extends beyond violence. It represents an assertion of power and domination over the victim. Any injuries sustained are either denied or attributed to the victim's actions. As physical violence becomes more frequent, the abuser gains confidence in their ability to exercise control over the victim. By this point, the cycle of idealization, abuse, and heightened control has persisted for so long that the victim feels utterly trapped and helpless. To conclude, it is important to note that while most abusive relationships follow these 4 stages, some abusers may progress to extreme levels of brutality and torture, introducing an additional stage known as sadism. This involves deriving pleasure from inflicting pain and suffering on the victim, encompassing severe beatings, torture, forced acts, mutilation, and more. The sadistic abuser revels in total dominance and control, treating the victim as a mere object for abuse. Not all abusive relationships reach this sadistic stage, but for those that do, it represents a point of no return in terms of the psychological and physical harm inflicted upon the victim. It signifies a complete loss of humanity within the abuser. While these stages of abuse in relationships are common, the cycle of abuse may vary in its progression. Thanks for watching, and please remember to leave a comment and subscribe.